travel alert, everybody. As you're hearing this, I will be at 3 Mile Hemp Farm tomorrow. That's right. Tomorrow, Saturday, the 26th of June, 2021. I'll be at 3 Mile Farm presenting. There is a nice little farmer's market going on, and then we will be talking cultivation. It's a $5 donation to get in. All proceeds go to the Women's Shelter in Harrisburg. This is in Harrisburg, Illinois. 3 Mile Farm. Come and visit, everybody. If you're in the Missouri area, if you're in the Southern Illinois area, come and say hi. I'll have prizes. We'll have giveaways going on there. Shout out to 3 Mile Farm. Thank you so much for hosting this and inviting us. Again, I'll see you there tomorrow. I'm speaking at 4. There is a farmer's market before then. It's all going down at 3 Mile Farm in Harrisburg, Illinois. I'll see you there. We have Marybeth Sanchez on the line for an awesome episode today. We're talking about soil biology, but specifically the types of microbes that don't get a lot of play, don't get a lot of discussion, especially in the cannabis world. So we're talking about the soil food web. It goes into all sorts of different directions. I know you're going to find today's episode very, very enjoyable. Before we jump in, though, going to give some love to one of my favorite partners, Rimrock Analytical. We had Taylor on the show. We had Taylor on GrowCast TV. Rimrock is the best. Sex testing, soil testing, viroid testing, and more. RimrockAnalytical.com. Use code GrowCast for free shipping on your tests. They just lowered the price at the time of this recording to $13 per test, and you save with bulk orders. And boy, is that worth it. The Rimrock collection process is extremely easy too. You just snip a little piece, drop it in a vial, and ship it on off with a prepaid shipping label. RimrockAnalytical.com. Code GrowCast for fast and affordable sex testing and more. Don't sleep on their nutrient testing, soil testing, and so very much more at rimrockanalytical.com. Let's get into it with Marybeth Sanchez, everybody. Thank you for listening to GrowCast and enjoy the program. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, as always, can I ask you to share the show? I really mean it. Tell a grower about GrowCast. It's up on Spotify. Everyone's got Spotify. Have someone tune into the podcast. It's the best way you can help this show. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch every episode, and if you want to give us a good rating and review, I would appreciate it. Today, team member, Marybeth Sanchez. How you doing, Marybeth?
Super duper duper, Jordan.
I love it.
You know, I was just thinking how much I like your intro and outro music, and so I was playing it in my head while you were talking just now.
Oh,
dancing along.
Too much. I love that. I get complimented on that a lot. I dug hard for that one. It is like one of those you pay for it, so you have royalties, you know. But it's like I believe it's called jazzyism. So thank you, Marybeth.
It's quite nice, Jordan.
She flatters me. She knows how to open the show well. She flatters me. So let me flatter you back, Marybeth. If you guys haven't heard, go check out all of her episodes. They're all incredible. You guys know her, you love her. She's an IPM specialist, a regenerative soil specialist, a very talented gardener inside and outside of the cannabis space, and kind of our in-house living soil expert, I guess you could say. We come to you with the soil questions, and if you don't have the answer, you hit up the people who do. So yeah, and you usually do have the answer. So I appreciate you, Marybeth, a lot.
This is what my horticulture teacher taught me when I was getting tested, you know, and he would say, you can bring all the books you want to class. He says, it doesn't matter you can't possibly memorize everything that you need to know in horticulture, but what you need to know is how to access the information. So I want to see if you know how to access information.
I love that.
And that's all that actually matters in horticulture is that you can access that information. You don't have to memorize it all. You just have to know where to find it when you need it.
I like that. That's a really thoughtful approach.
Keep it in mind. You can't memorize everything, but try to learn how to access information.
That's cool.
Very,
That's
very
cool.
helpful.
Open it up hot. I love it. We are talking soil today, though. I kind of needed some clarification. I guess that alludes to what I was saying before.
Yeah.
I just want to know more about this microorganism. I don't want to say necessarily food web, just the variety of microorganisms, I guess is what we're going to cover today. You know, when people talk about microbes in the cannabis growing world, they're usually referring to like a bacteria input product. But really, you know, you take a look at microbes and there's several different classifications, a lot of which really don't come up very much in cannabis growing in general. You know, we talk about the fungi and the bacteria, but I don't know, the protozoa, that comes up much less. Algae, I want to talk about all that stuff today.
Yay.
Why don't we start with protozoa? Because it had come up recently on the show. And I was wondering, how protozoa act, what their function is, and how it could possibly apply to us cannabis growers.
Well, it's one of the more important parts of well, I guess I say more important, but every bit as important as the rest of the food web in there, because the protozoas are usually the ones eating the bacteria and the fungi, and that's where we're going to get the nutrients released from. When the protozoa goes poop, then we get those plant available nutrients right in the root zone. And so, although protozoa will thrive more in low oxygen conditions, they'll also live okay in good oxygen conditions. But if you're making compost tea, you'll really notice the difference. When your oxygen gets low, your protozoa population explodes. But they're just really a super beneficial part of the whole scene. And you don't need to look at them as a bad guy. You need to, because they're eating your bacteria, your beneficial microbes in there, but they're also a beneficial microbe. And like I say, if we don't let our beneficial microbes die, they won't release the nutrients to us. So it's all part of that circle of life thing. We're all here to be born and release our nutrients eventually.
Okay. So they're just another integral part of that soil food web. From a cannabis
extremely, yeah.
From a cannabis perspective, we're introducing the correct formulated types of mycorrhizal fungi. We're introducing and reapplying these very specific beneficial bacterias. What about the protozoa? Like you said, it's available in compost and things like that, but is it present in our cannabis gardens? And if not, how can we apply it to our grow?
Well, I'm not sure who's doing a commercial preparation of it, but the easiest way is to get compost or whatever going. But straw mulch, if you want to mulch with straw, that's famous for having a high protozoa content. Like even an indoor grower without a compost pile can get some straw and try to chop it up fine, and put a layer of that on your top of your soil as a mulch, and you get a little bit of protozoa every time you water through it. It's not a gigantic amount, but anytime you have a batch of compost tea and starts going bad, the protozoa population explodes. So that's one way. If you have a friend who makes compost tea, say, hey, can you make me a batch of heavy on the protozoa?
Very interesting.
But here's another thing that was experimentally, I told you once about what happened with the Dr. Symes when my batch went bad and everything went anaerobic. I threw Dr. Symes in it, and I said, you know what, this will act as the protozoa to kill the bacteria and release the nutrients, and I'll at least have the nutrients from my tea, even though the electricity went off and everything smelled awful. I thought this way I can still use it. I won't have to throw it away, and it worked. And the plants responded immediately. You could see, because this is what the protozoa are doing. Same thing. They're getting those nutrients out of the bacteria and into the soils, into the root zone.
I see. So similar functions to certain enzymes.
Yeah.
But a living microorganism.
Yeah.
Interesting. The protozoa. Yeah. But it just fascinates me because I am a lay person when it comes to soil science. And like I said, you see a lot of these formulated products and you hear about,
correct. Well,
you just don't really hear about the protozoa.
Well, yeah, because, you don't want to get too deep into the science and people fall asleep. Because they don't know what the terms just start getting to be too much Latin. And Latin. Your eyes are getting a little eyelids getting heavy, and I don't remember what you said. And so what I feel like the commercial preparations are wonderful for people who can't necessarily make compost or compost tea. Like suppose you're in a little apartment on the 6th floor in the middle of a city. Can't necessarily make compost or compost tea, but you can still get a lot of that really good biology out of those commercial preparations. And so you're at least getting that much of the food web into the thing, and the more the merrier, the more the better. Presumably you're you're not balancing things the wrong direction, but most of these commercial preparations are made to be the good stuff. So I
formulated.
think they're wonderful.
Yeah, and specific. But you're saying if you grab some activated compost, Purple Cow makes a great activated compost.
Yeah.
Then you're just basically scattershotting a lot of those similar microbes and more.
Right. You're probably getting most of them, but who knows at what concentrations. Right. And at least in the commercial preparations, they're concentrated.
That's true.
Amount of X whatever kind of bacteria that you may not have a ton of in your particular compost. That's
Right.
why I feel like at least, that's a good way to supplement and be sure that you do have, suppose you want a lot of phosphorus available kind of bacteria, things that make your phosphorus available or things that make your nitrogen available. You can buy these commercial preparations and make sure that you have them. And it can't hurt anything to put them out there.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So a little bit of a better understanding, but still, I'm baffled that it just doesn't come up as much when we're talking about this in cannabis.
No, I've noticed that things come in phases like that, though,
That's
because
true.
I mean, people didn't used to talk about compost or composting much, and then they started to, and then they started getting more specific about various bacteria and things. And well, it's just more interesting to me the more that people get into it, because it is pretty still, like I say, in its infancy. That particular area of the science, they've only really started getting into it earlier this last century. Which is, as far as science goes, is not really a very long time, especially
Right.
for something as complex as the microbiology.
Right.
Probably the most important thing in the world that we've just completely ignored
Exactly. The final
for
frontier, if you will,
centuries. Yeah,
to quote the great James T. Kirk.
there you go.
And I was happy to find that the protozoa were beneficial, though.
Mhm.
I was going to ask you, we'll turn into Mario for a second. I was going to ask you about the algae family, because the only time that I've, run into algae is when I overwatered really bad and I went into Bayside and I was like, hey, what's this growth on top of my soil? And they said, that's algae. That's really bad.
Mhm.
But maybe there's more different types. What can you tell us about something that I really don't hear about in the cannabis world, which is algae in your soil?
Yeah. Well, it's really pretty under the microscope. It's really pretty to look at. It's not necessarily the fabulous thing in your soil, because it's really going to indicate you're watering too much, and you're going to attract other issues. But, if you have some like the cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae, the whatever that people take as supplements, these are really good for your health. And there's probably some way to make a preparation of or thing you could put in your compost pile where you could access and recycle nutrients from algae, and
Sure.
that would be fabulous for many things. But just like to have soil with algae growing on top is usually going to cut off oxygen to your soil, and you're usually going to want to aerate your soil and try to get oxygen in there. And the thing with the protozoa, or I wanted to clarify, when we talk about good bacteria, bad bacteria, there's really no bad bacteria. There's just things at different levels on the food chain, and they all do need to be there and eat each other. So we don't get eaten, we become cancer. You know what I'm saying?
I see. I see.
Cells that don't die are cancer. We all have to die someday, including those low bacteria, and we all have to release our nutrients. So the protozoa, you might have said, well, that's a bad bacteria because it's indicating low oxygen. Not a
Because
bad
you said they did well.
bacteria.
Oh, I get it.
Because it's actually doing you a good favor, but it does indicate low oxygen. If you're trying
okay.
to breed some oxygen-loving stuff, you're going to want to get your oxygen up. What would really be a bad bacteria would be something like salmonella or something that that
I
really
understand.
causes a disease that really can harm people. E. coli, you don't want to see that in your composty.
That's kind of a perspective shift for me, because I totally understand what you're saying. The anaerobic indicators,
Correct.
but the protozoa doesn't harm your plants.
Exactly.
Does the algae harm your plants, or is it just present because you overwatered and your plants are being harmed?
I think if it got excessive, it could.
Okay.
I would hope it wouldn't get to that
Right.
point.
Usually just little
But
spots on the top of your soil when you've really overwatered bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And usually, what I'll tell people is if your soil starts getting crusty like that after watering it, it's a good idea to just break up that top layer to let the airflow go.
Sure.
It makes a huge difference in a lot of plants I've seen, where especially how the fungus gnats are, and it helps to get it just to dry up a little there. Let the airflow. It's not quite so exquisitely moist and attractive for their eggs.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, so my assumption was right. It's just algae is generally not necessarily a bad thing for your plants, but it's a sign of just a bad thing. There's no beneficial algae.
Yeah, I'm not sure it has a great, huge nutritional value for the plant. It's usually, found in the water situation. So it's an indication of just too much water, probably.
Right. Makes
going
sense.
on. A little hint that you might been overwatering just a little.
It makes sense too.
Get your rice hulls on there or something to suck up that water.
Here's another thing that again, a perspective shift. We'll be right back with Marybeth Sanchez, but first, plant success, aka plant revolution. Go to plantrevolution.com. Find the great white mycorrhiza. You've seen that around, but they offer so much more. Have you tried their king crab lately? You can get a sample from plantrevolution.com, and it is worth it, baby. That king crab is the bomb. It is a very clean, highly formulated, beneficial bacterial product that helps with photosynthesis, nutrient uptake, helps clean up your soil or your root zone or your DWC system, whatever it may be. It's virtually usable in every system. I've seen people use it, as I've said, from living soil to DWC, and it is just wonderful for whatever setup you're using. Those beneficial bacteria go nuts. So check out King Crab. Check out their liquid Myco Orca. Their Orca is their liquid fungi, and I'm a big fan of that as well. In addition to their Myco Chum and their Great White, everything we love. Plant Revolution. Check them out in your local hydro store. Hit up plantrevolution.com. Great friends of the show. Thank you to Plant Revolution. All right, let's get back to it with Marybeth Sanchez. Here's another thing that again, a perspective shift. But all these organisms are just trying to thrive and survive, just like us. You know what I mean?
Right.
But algae, man, I'm not surprised that it's not a beneficial part of your garden. I've had a lot of work with algae. You know that I used to have a job mucking ponds.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know, because they'll get that nice layer of algae if they're not cared for.
I love ponds.
Yeah, so you
yes,
get on
sir.
the waders and you get a rake and you get out into the water and you muck the ponds. When I was a young boy, before I was a podcaster, before I was a grower, before I was a pizza driver.
Oh my gosh.
I was mucking. I was mucking ponds and
a muckraker.
Yeah, I was a muckraker. I used to rake muck, Jordan. And yeah, that stuff just stank, and it was not cleanly.
Now I'm sure that if you let it dry out, you crumble it up in your compost, I bet you'd get a lot of nutritional value out of it.
That's a good point. I wouldn't
take it in its wet state and go throw it on anything.
Oh, it's so gross. I would stink for days sometimes. Yeah. You guys did want to meet me back then. Muckraker. A lowly muckraker.
Hey. Well, you had an interesting life experience.
Oh, yeah. Of course. But yeah, I'm not surprised that it's not, it's just it seems very unsterile. So I don't know. Again, maybe in a compost setting, but anyways, there's a reason that we don't focus on some of these other things because they're not directly tied in with our botany of desire, our goals with the plant that we're working with here. You know, we want a few specific types of fungi to thrive, right? Bacteria is a little more scattershot, right?
Algae is kind of a real thief of oxygen. So what it doesn't do its own photosynthesis, so it steals the oxygen from elsewhere. So one of your main problems you're going to have with the excessive watering, bringing the algae means a lot less oxygen available in your place where you're trying to have a high oxygen environment. So that's kind of the way it can cause you troubles if it gets excessive.
I see. That makes sense with the pond scenario too, because they always get stagnant and that's when they have all these problems.
Yeah, I got to kill off the excess algae because otherwise the fish aren't going to be able to breathe.
Wow. Damn.
Correct.
Yeah. Algae is just trying to survive, but it's a bitch, man.
I love fish ponds. So yeah, I do have to fight with algae periodically. And you got to be careful what you put in there because you can't put anything that's going to kill the fish. So I'm careful about that.
Right.
So far, so good. Knocking on wood. Yeah, when the pond gets to the point that you can't see through because the algae, if you don't have any killer stuff for your algae, you can cover your pond with a tarp or something to block out the light. And if you block out the light, no photosynthesis happening, so that the algae just dies in a couple of weeks. So you can kill it without any chemical at all if you have to.
Wow.
Which I've done before too. It works.
Wow, that's very interesting. Deprive it of light. Huh.
Yeah, deprive it of light and it goes away in a couple of weeks. That's about the max.
I like that. Okay.
Fish are all going, what happened? What happened to the sun?
Extended eclipse.
But hey, you can see through the water again. It's really nice.
Damn, this was a great little exploration here, Marybeth. Let's continue it. I had one question that I would love for you to clarify. Why do I always see bacteria and Actinomycetes classified as two different things? And then as a layperson, when I look up Actinomycetes, it's just a different type of bacteria, it seems like.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it was recently
Correct.
reclassified. It was one of those things. So, there's still that confusion in the slow moving train of, getting all the literature to match up. But it used to be classified as a fungus, like one of the mold, mildew kind of funguses. And they decided after all, it turns out that it's in fact just a really weird ass bacteria that looks quite fungal under the microscope.
Whoa.
But it also has distinctive signs that it is not a fungus. If you're really looking carefully at its morphology, or in other words, what its body looks like, then you will be able to tell the difference when you see it in the
Wow.
microscope. But it's a really beneficial creature that just really, really helps with the other pathogenic we used to call fungi in the mycetes, mycetes. It really helps to combat molds and mildews and things in the soil. And it also can work systemically in the plant. This is the actinomycetes we're talking about. It can work systemically to prevent a lot of mold and mildew.
Wow.
The
Interesting.
systemic type. And so, yeah, people who have a PM problem will use it a lot preventatively, like especially lawn care people, big, huge garden maintenance people will use it a lot preventatively because they don't want to have a powder mildew problem in their botanical gardens at, whatever place you're going to. It's, become really popular.
Whoa.
I think Monsanto got a hold of them because it was so good and everybody was buying it. So unfortunately, you have to take a deep breath when you buy it, but it still works. The product still works.
Interesting.
So regardless of who owns the company, if that's the only way you can get actinomycetes sometimes, if you have to go through them, I would suggest getting it sometimes anyway. Bite your lip and get it anyway because it is effective.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? If they bought up all the trichoderma in the world, that would be a crying shame. But I still have to use it on rare occasions because when those occasions come where I want that strong of a guy on my side. The thing is, with those two products is that they wipe out a lot of the other biology, so they become so dominant, and so things are a little imbalanced. But yet they're doing a good job, so not like the worst thing you could do. But I like diversity, so I like to do things that encourage diversity. That's probably just my own weird hang up. But I think you have less problems because, like with a monocropper, just relying on one single thing, if anything goes wrong with that one single thing, then you're really up a creek. You know what I'm saying? So diversity is better as far as like having something that can survive if one other thing goes down.
Does not, right?
Or two or three other things go down.
Damn.
You'll still have other things that are surviving. So that's kind of a lot of why I am against monocrops and relying on just one thing.
Is this another one of those important, or let's just say effective, microbes that thrives in more anaerobic conditions, kind of like the protozoa?
A little bit.
That's what it says.
It's kind of what we'd call facultative in that it's fine in both ways.
Okay.
It's fine in a high and low oxygen environment. So it's one of those that works both ways. It's really, really helpful.
Oh, wow.
Especially since it's usually working for the same causes that we, the gardeners, are working for. It's usually on our side as far as the food web and the ultimate results go.
Wow.
So yeah, it's similar to the trichoderma. It's going to usually, outcompete anything else in the soil. So it's going to win, and you might have nothing but trichoderma in the soil for a while, but hopefully then you won't have problems during that time. I've seen it save things that nothing else could save.
Man, interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the product name that we could find this type of bacteria in?
The actinomycetes, I think actinovate is the only one that I know. And they may have some kind of, patent or something on that product that they're not sharing it with the general population. I'm not real sure about that, but if you know Monsanto, they like to control things. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Yeah. So, yeah, that may be the only place you can get it. But actinovate is the stuff you would find in the store for that, and it does work good. Now, for the trichoderma, I know a lot of different people sell trichoderma. So just look for trichoderma. The three really most virulent strains, or the most powerful strains in trichoderma: Harzianum, sounds funny, Harzianum, Viridis, and Virens. They sound really similar, but they are really, really really powerful. They don't all work as well in the same climate. So that's why you would maybe want one over another. I can't remember right off the top of my head who likes what best, but I know where I live, Herzianum's the one you want the most. The other two will work well, but not as well. But, in some climates where it's either more hot or more humid or more whatever, the others might work better.
It's really interesting. It's tough to know what's going on though, unless you have access to, some level of equipment like microscopes and then also a knowledge, like how am I going to know what I'm looking at? So it's a little overwhelming, I guess, as a home grower.
Yeah. Well, these are things that you can put out preventatively. So, hopefully just don't have problems. I don't have to think about what it might be. There's that you could put it out and know that you're probably not going to get any problems if you just want to be like that. And, it's always a good idea. What I recommend to people is, I like the diversity, like I said. So I like to get my less vigorous things established and then add like the trichoderma or something that's more dominating so that the others will have a chance to also thrive and survive in the situation. And that's normally how they recommend. Trichoderma is one of those things that's fabulous for some reason or other. They haven't quite figured out why yet, but studies keep showing that if you start applying trichoderma during flowering, magically you get better flowering. And so I don't know if it's part of what it's doing under the soil. If you had perfect soil, maybe you wouldn't see a difference. I don't know, but it's one of those things that I would definitely recommend, because by the time you're in flowering, you've theoretically got established populations of good other stuff going on that isn't going to be necessarily just instantly wiped out when the trichoderma comes along.
Right. That makes sense. So the timing of the application too. I like that tip as far as like keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
Don't need a microscope to understand that. So I do appreciate that tip, but it's still a lot. It's a lot of Latin. And I mean, we're there now, as the larger classification of bacteria. Yeah. Are there more types of bacteria than any other of these microbes? Like, probably. Is that the most diverse? Yeah.
I would think so. I mean, they because there aren't enough scientists to even classify everything yet.
Right.
This is what I'm finding out, even by different species of bacteria and different species, enzymes and species, different groups and enzymes and things. It's like, yeah, they just still don't have enough scientists to classify everything. So they have at least X amount of thousands known, but there's more to be known. And, look at how we tend to do things on the earth. Things are go extinct before we even find them. Right. So, God damn it, pisses me off. But what can you do? I can't fix it.
You're so funny, Marybeth. You're the greatest guest. Yeah, it is super interesting. You see some of these formulated companies focusing on a select few. I think Mammoth P has like 3 or 4 different species of bacteria, beneficial bacteria, designed specifically for yield enhancing. Right. And then you see some of these other formulated ones, like your king crab, which has like 15 different types of beneficial bacteria. And then the kind of mix and match ones like Recharge, like molasses and all sorts of trichoderma and myco together. It's like really, really interesting how companies are taking different routes. And as somebody who uses all of those products together, I'm enjoying the diversity approach. I know not everybody agrees with that take, but I'm definitely enjoying the approach of diversity, especially when it takes so little of a lot of these products. It really doesn't take much. In a home grow, exactly. It's not going to break. It's not even going to come close to breaking the bank. So,
no, and the whole thing is just growing and growing, because I think about as long as I've been around. When I was growing up, they definitely didn't have biologicals on the shelf anywhere. It was all just like Scott's Miracle Grow and that kind of stuff. There was all salts. Nobody talking about biology. There was nobody encouraging you to get a fungus in your garden. What, are you kidding me? Don't you want everything sterile?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
It's changing.
So the world is definitely growing up and learning more. And I think it's wonderful just to see now that they have caught on to biology, more and more is becoming more and more available. And like the different formulations, and somebody realizing that, hey, this stuff is much more fabulous than I imagined. And sure enough, it is. And yeah, the more we learn, the more we realize we didn't know anything, but it is fascinating. We are learning. we're still coming to new frontiers, and part of those new frontiers is the biology.
100%.
Why have we not delved deeper into that yet?
100%. And I think that really, I'm excited to see this next run that I'm doing here. I just actually transplanted my first foray away from what you would consider a living soil, but you could still consider it synganic. I'm playing with this beanstalk ag control release fertilizer, but I'm still going to apply all my microbes to that soil. Now, now those are it's the same exact thing as your salt nutrients, but it's in a prill form instead. I'm sure that's a step in the right direction for you, Marybeth. So it's not a liquid. It's in the prill form, and supposedly the microbiology in the soil is relatively left intact when you use beanstalk. So I'm going to be applying microbes, and listen, my 4x4 is 4 of my 5 plants always going to be in living soil. But we're going to see how this beanstalk run goes. Correct. We're going to see how this beanstalk run goes. I will keep you, Marybeth, and the entire audience updated. Yeah, first time I'm trying something a little different in a long time.
No, it's fascinating, and that's another myth that we can dispel too. Is if you're trying to go with biology and all that, you can't have any salts or synthetics at all in your system, but you actually can. You just want to keep those numbers relatively small. Right. And that usually the biology can handle it, and it's just fine. Everybody's happy to have the extra nutrients and the instant gratification.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Anything going on in your world to update here before we wrap it up, Marybeth?
Oh boy, we're going through the heat and the heat waves, but the gardens are all going good. This year has been such a weird year with supply chains and things. So everything, that you thought was going to go according to a certain plan, the plans are being modified by the minute every day, everywhere I go. So it's just it's been an interesting year. And I was thinking eventually that's what I'm going to talk about is I'd like to say, this is how you do it and this is the result. But instead, I'm going to have to talk about when everything goes wrong, this is how you fix it, because that's about what's happening this year.
Oh, man. That's the angle you're going to have to take. Is the heat wave bad out there?
Yeah. Oh, it's been weird. Yeah, because we were getting heat waves interspersed with killer frost. Some plants were quite stressed out, let me tell you, because they can't figure out what the hell's going on. Now we're back in heat wave mode. I don't think we'll be having any more killer frost. We're done. But we get those here all the way up till almost Father's Day weekend. Okay. So now we know we're done with that.
Jeez.
So people can finally safe to plant your tomatoes, but almost everybody who planted early, they have to replant now with the tender veggies because they all got frosted.
Jeez,
but plants that I put in the ground quite a while ago are just starting to hit their stride because they're finally getting some stable conditions where they're not going to go into frost again. They're not going to be dropping into low temperatures every night. So things are starting to go off, but it's so much fun to just watch the parade of the different flowers. These ones go down, those ones come up. I don't know if you saw my Instagram post today, but I put up a poppy collection that was kind of sweet.
Yes, it was beautiful.
With all the bees and the little pollinators, and it's fun. Yeah, the gardens are fun. Just like I say, stuff dies, new stuff comes up. Oh, it's sunny days are beautiful. I'm just trying to stay positive because as hot as it is, I can at least enjoy that the sky is blue and the trees are green.
You're the sweetest thing.
The water hasn't run out of the reservoir yet.
You are like the sweetest thing in the world. No, you make a good point. Recent GrowCast TV guest, friend of the show, Queen of the Sun, was saying up in Tahoe, she's getting 100-degree swings. How do you is there anything you can do? I envy you outdoor growers a lot, but then you get to situations like this and it's like you've brought it up before, shade cloth, watering with cooler water. Maybe, there's like nothing you can really do, right?
Yeah. And you have to be careful, like water after the sun goes down or before the sun comes up. I mean, you don't want to be in the direct light. If it's behind the mountain and you can still see, it doesn't have to be dark. You just don't want to be in direct light while you're doing that. And you try to adapt. Boy, take deep breaths. Thank God for the resilience of so many plants.
That's crazy. I've also heard silica, having ample silica can help with the heat stress.
It very much helps. Yeah. That's one of those things. Silica, good plant nutrition in general, but that is one of the things. And potassium as well. Really good for reducing the stress. But
Okay.
part of potassium is the silica. The seaweed stuff got silica in it too. Not as huge of an amount as you might want, so go ahead and add extra if you need to.
You know, you help a lot of people in the Discord chat for our members. Every single day we're in the Discord. Patreon.com/GrowCast. Get in there. If you're in the membership, make sure you're in the Discord. It's like the best, you guys.
That group is good.
Thank you. Thank you, Marybeth. We love how you're helping everybody. But I do have to say, a lot of the nutrient deficiencies that we see in the Plant Problems channel, a lot of that is magnesium, sulfur, especially if they're like, in the earlier phases.
Potassium.
And then potassium later on. It's crazy. It seems like every other post, it's either,
it's amazing.
Like an Epsom salt application, not too much, but just enough,
right,
or a soluble seaweed powder, which seems like you can never add enough of. It's crazy.
No.
I'd say half of the posts are those minerals.
Well, I think it's a telling about how much we presume about the plant and how much we think it relies on what you see on the fertilizer bottle. And almost none of them really give you the right amount of potassium. Or if they do, they're giving you so much that you kind of overdose. Like you see those things that are like 20, 50, 70 or whatever. I mean, it's just like crazy numbers. Too big. Just like, okay, take a deep breath. Yes, you need potassium. You don't need to drown in potassium. You're going to be okay.
But I do like the soluble seaweed powder. That's a nice
solubility.
Cheap, yeah, it's natural. It's fast. That is what Marybeth is always recommending for that potassium boost, which cannabis just seems to freaking gobble up.
Well, that's just it. At a certain stage in its life, it gets even hungrier for it. So you didn't need that much maybe when it was a youth. But now that it goes into flowers, wow. It's like, when you got teenagers, Jesus Christ, can they eat?
Right. Holy crap, good point. So
all of a sudden, pour out the potassium, please. Start loading it on. Sulfur, too. When your growing tips start turning yellow, sulfur, they're screaming for the sulfur. Give me some sulfur. And we don't have it in our environment as readily as we used to. So we have to frequently apply a little extra. And that's where that magnesium sulfate gives you that grit. Really instant gratification without being really a toxic level of salts.
Yeah, 100%. And I will also say that use that sparingly because the magnesium, I guess, can be an antagonist, but you don't need
everything.
Much. Treat it once.
Everything's sparing. But I know almost every organic gardener I've ever heard or speak recommends the magnesium sulfate. So in moderate levels, 1 or 2 tablespoons a gallon when you need it. It's not something that you have to just freely pour out every day. But your plants will definitely tell you. You can see when you need it. And it's really pretty quick at taking care of the troubles. When I say quick, it's not overnight. It's within a week or two, you'll start noticing really.
Totally.
The color changes.
A couple days to have that take effect. And then
yeah,
I will also say, finally, there are a couple things that I've seen have fooled me when I've been trying to help people. When it would that kind of look like sulfur deficiency. For instance, overwatering can sometimes cause that yellowish, right? And then also light stress. So be careful. But if it makes sense, like Marybeth said, like if your plant is growing and growing and growing, and then it hits this kind of period where it starts to yellow out, it probably ran out of sulfur, right? But if it's just after a transplant and you watered heavily, maybe give it a second to get to the new soil. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
And that's it. You got to do detective work for all this stuff because it might be not necessarily that you're lacking in something, but that maybe you had too much of another thing, so it got locked out.
Right, or overwatered or what have you.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways you can. Sometimes it's a pest bug that's stealing your nutrients from you. So, you may be giving it plenty, but the pests are eating it all. So your plant is having a deficiency because of the, the invisible creatures are sucking up all the nutrients. So there's a variety of things it could be. So we do have to do the detective work when we get on there and start asking questions. Did you do this? Did you put this in?
That's the first step. Yeah. Always more questions.
Yeah. Temperature, humidity. It's all important.
Are they on concrete? Are your roots on concrete?
What are you doing in there?
No, I said they were up on something. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Oh, aye.
Oh, it's funny. You always miss something and then dig into something. Yeah. Anyways, this is lovely as usual, Marybeth. Let's see at MBSIPM. If you don't follow her on Instagram, go follow her. She does all sorts of great posting and webinars with Zymes, and she is all over membership, folks. Patreon.com/GrowCast. She is an official team member. She's a partner, if you will.
Hey.
Hey.
Be there or be square.
I love it.
Rectangular even.
Oh, thank you for taking the time today, Marybeth. I'll let you sign off and get out to your hot garden.
Oh man, yeah, those got some thirsty critters out there looking for water. Wonder what to do.
Take care of yourself, all right? Stay cool.
Thank you, Jordan. It's a pleasure as always.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There you go, folks. Queen Marybeth. I know you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time, everybody. That's all for today. This is Jordan River and Marybeth signed off, saying be safe out there and grow smarter. That's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you to Marybeth Sanchez. Shout out to AC Infinity. Before we wrap it, gotta give some love to AC Infinity. They make the best fans in the game. A lot of imitators, but only one AC Infinity. Code GrowCast15 saves you 15%. And make sure to send us a snapshot of you using any of our codes to be entered to win free seeds every month. DM us on Instagram or email contact@growcastpodcast.com. AC Infinity, though, they got these sexy, thick, durable, affordable tents on their website. They got the Smart series of fans with a brand new controller, the T series. And they've got the S series, which is the simple series, which still comes with a 10-speed fan controller. No more heavy, clunky, one-speed fans, guys. Upgrade to AC Infinity, use code GrowCast15, and send us a snapshot to be entered to win free seeds. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate all of the support, all of the downloads, all of the sharing, all of the members. Just you listeners, people showing up. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you tomorrow at the time of this recording. I'll be at 3 Mile Farm in Southern Illinois. Come and visit. Hit up GrowCast on Instagram or go to growcastpodcast.com/3 mile. All one word, 3 mile, for more information. I'll see you there, everybody. All right. We'll see you on GrowCast next time. Bye-bye.